spotted what I thought looked like snow on the ground, so I walked over to it, and as I neared it, I realized that it was like a fur or a hair was lying on the ground. And I thought, oh, there's been a kill here. So I came up, and the hair on the back of my neck was sticking up, but I walked over and I was expecting to see body parts and all that kind of stuff lying around, but all I did was find this hair. Just clumps of hair lying on the ground, and it was on top of what looked like a dung material. And the hair appeared to be cut off, like it had been hacked off with something like a sharp knife, or, well, a semi-sharp knife, or scissors or something like that. And then there was this log here that I was looking at, and there was little clumps of hair along it, and little clumps of hair along that log. But what I was looking for were body parts to suggest what kind of animal this was, or something, or how this hair fur got here. And as I was looking around and I followed this little trail, I came down to the little bottom of this little knoll, and there was this broken bottle jammed in the ground. And it didn't mean anything to me at the time, but then now I realize it was the bottle. That bottle was used to cut the fur, or hack the fur off, or hair, whatever it is, off this creature that had been here. And right now I'm following a little tiny trail up to this mound, and where all the hair is and fur was. I could find no body parts whatsoever, and so I had no clue what this was all about. Since then, a friend of mine, maybe a couple weeks later, I was explaining to him what I had seen out there, and he said, "Oh, that's Bigfoot." And I kind of laughed, and I said, "Yeah, uh-huh." So I decided to go out there and see what was up. And so I went out there and to go retrieve the hair, and all the hair was gone. I went to retrieve the bottle, and the bottle was gone. There was no hair left on the ground. Everything had been picked up, and the place was clean as far as that goes. But I did remember that I'd seen clumps of hair on the logs. So I went over to those, and sure enough, the clumps of hair were still on the logs. So I sat on the log and surmised what they were trying to do. And then I started looking underneath the log and just around, and I realized there was hairs underneath, and underneath the ferns and all that. Not lots of them, but quite a few. And so what I did was I gathered all these up, and found other little bone fragments, and I actually found what looked like a big dropping, and it was about 15 inches long, had broken into 4 pieces, but it was right next to this area that I was sitting on. And if you'll look at this next clump that I show you, this shows how it looks like it's been cut off. And all the pieces are like that. As you'll notice, it looks like it's been hacked off. This is a good clump. This is from the spring. See, what I realized is the hair that I was finding underneath this hair, I was realizing this was from the fall. They were taking off the dark colored hair, getting down to the light colored hair. And the other hair that we saw in the beginning was from them in the spring, where they were getting rid of the white hair and getting down to the dark hair again for the rest of the year. Well, as you can gather, this got me really excited, this find and all that, that I started going out into the woods every single day and seeing what was out there. And what happened was, the rest of the story was that I started to realize that people were out there and they started playing games with me, whereupon I would leave something and they would do something with it and or take it with them. So what we do now is I give them gifts and they give me gifts back. They've given me a beaver, they've given me half a fish, they've given me little flower parts, little feathers. They always leave me signs that they've been there, and etc., etc., etc. You'll see in the rest of the video of this ongoing story. So for the first year, what I did was crisscross the area of interest to see what the boundaries were for these people and see what kind of signs they leave, and so I can get an idea of who they are, what they're doing, etc., etc., etc. Well, it came down to where I found this was the only place that I hadn't explored and didn't really want to explore, because the whole field here, which looks like a field, is all trenches. Some of them are pretty deep, some of them are pretty wide, but it's all trenches and it's treacherous walking through there. But if you do know how to get through there, you can get through there. And in the center, where actually the camera is pointing now, there is a little clearing in the middle of the trees where I realize that's where they sit, or whoever I'm dealing with sits and looks around, and you can't get to him easily. And so I went over there, and sure enough, what I did was I found a hole in the ground, a trench, which had been covered in sticks and had been used earlier. And I think I have the video here. Let's put this up. So, what has been really confusing is that when I found the hair, I also found a dropping that was about 15 inches long and about 5 inches thick, which is in the video too, I believe, and it shows me cutting it up. But that was at the white hair area. But something was always confusing me. What was confusing was there was this little path that went up to the white hair, and then this little path leading off into the forest, well, across this wet area and then into the forest. So I was thinking, well, maybe they're baby Bigfoot or something like that, and there was a Bigfoot there also. So that started all that off. But all the time I've been out there, I keep getting this feeling that I'm dealing with small people, and I see all these small things happening out in the forest all the time, and I see at the same time these big things happening. Well, I've been trying to follow the big thing because I see this white being out there and he is huge. And somebody came to my house after I found the white hair and left me 3 deep prints in my backyard, hoof prints, and a big pile of droppings that resembled a goat dropping, but were meat instead of grass, or like a moose. Anyway, I've learned to tell the difference, and that's how I find them out in the forest. But I wasn't really aware of who I was dealing with. I go along the riverbanks and I have these experiences with somebody hiding in the grass. And in one video you can actually hear me, I tried to head them off at the pass because I know where they go under the bank, at least this batch of guys, and I have a belief that there are other entrances, but this is the only one that I seem to know very well because they always ambush me there, and they like to rustle around in the grass and just as I come by, and then they scamper off. But I always thought, like, where did they go? Because I didn't hear them go anywhere, and I could go in there and I wouldn't find anything. But remember, I was looking for this big, huge, 1,000-pound being, and I now believe that he is up on the hill, and these creatures are both white, and they both, well, they're both white. I don't know if the goat creature, or the white being, I call him, the big one, cuts his hair off, because I don't think I found that hair. I think what I've been dealing with is these little people that the Native Americans talk about. Now, if I go back into everything that I've done and seen and experienced, I also believe that they may be invisible or able to go invisible, which I don't like to think things like that, because that really brings up, you know, things that are just way beyond my thinking. I mean, how and anybody could do that, but then maybe I'm dealing with beings that are super superior to me and have technology, which I believe they do because of the things that I've seen in the forest. And it seems like I ask for things and they give them to me, and then when I asked them not to give me things, they didn't. And I'm talking about, they used to feed me. I found a fish cage in the water once, and I saw a little like crab in there or something like that. I've forgotten what it was, and crayfish. And I figured, oh, that's bait. And I said, oh, somebody's fishing. And I pulled on the line a little bit, and it just let go. And so I was just pulling on empty line. I didn't pull it all the way, and I just left it. And I put the fish cage back into the water and paddled off. Well, the next day there was a half a fish in there, and it had been cut like with a laser, and there was no blood or anything, and it was just totally fresh. And so I thought that was weird. I didn't take the fish or anything, but I just thought that was weird. And then next day I was up there. There was a beaver. Same deal, just freshly killed, had a little puncture hole in it, no blood. And I thought, wow, that's really weird. And I said out loud, you know, I don't really need this, thanks. And there was some other instances, and I won't get into them because somebody might recognize some of these incidences that happened around my town. But I eventually had to go out in the forest and tell these people, I said, look, I really appreciate it, but you don't have to feed me. And they never did after that. But I was in this other place, which I call the lights area. And there I found 4 piles of hair, and I have video of that somewhere, and it's out there anyway. And I went there, and I didn't do anything to the hair. And next thing I know, they gave me a turkey, and which is weird. I don't know why these beings do this, but it seems like they break off the hoofs of the animals, and they take the heads, and if there are any other appendages, they take them too, but they leave they leave everything for me, and it's fresh. There's a little puncture hole in it, and there's no blood in them, and they're warm to the touch still, like they were just killed within a minute before I got there. But so we're back to this little people. Now, I've had a lot of fun with them coming up and talking with me. And if you've heard in my videos, I put one out, but there was this one instance where I came around the pond, well, around this bend in the river, and I wasn't making any sound. I was just going with the flow, and I just happened to touch my paddle in the water really gently, and around the corner I heard this huge roar of water being displaced, and I came around the corner and there was nothing there, and as I was going by, all of a sudden this creature was making this horrible racket, and it stunk like a woolly mammoth. My mind was thinking, and my mind was thinking it was huge because it had this huge bellowy voice, and it was just going at it to me, and I started yelling back at it because I was just as scared as it. So I was talking to him about that, and I was saying, I'm not going to do that to you anymore, and you don't have to worry about me. And he was screaming back and everything. Anyway, he finally got over our scream fest, and that was it. But other times I've met them, and they like to just vocalize to me when I catch them. Well, I don't try to catch them, but I did one day. I tried to head them off the pass. That's, I think, what I was just talking about a minute ago. And I tried to head them off before they got to their opening under the water there, and dove in and went under the bank, whatever they do. And so I cut them off, and they were talking to me, and I'm going, it's just me, and they're talking back and everything. And you can hear that in some video, I've forgotten what it is, talking to it or something like that. But I'm realizing that there are many of these beings at this place where I'm at, and they're all along the banks, and they're all in the forest there, and I believe there are many, many, many of them, because the stuff they do, which is like what beavers do, but this is not beavers, and I will start proving that in the future, because I've been doing stuff like that anyway. But that's what is happening, and that's who I'm dealing with. I would like to meet them, and they said that medicine men and children are the only people that can meet them. And it seems like I'm getting to that point where I'm going to be meeting them. They say they have slender faces, and they have no noses, and they like to help you if you're respectful of them and everything. And that's obviously what I found out, because I've been given all sorts of gifts, and I've had so much reactions from them for the last 12 years or so. I don't know if they come down to my house, because I haven't seen anything here. But whoever that hoofed being is, that is massive, that's kind of weird. And of course, then I have Bigfoot, and that's the black hair. Like, I found this whole pile of just black hair, and I took a big wad of it, but that was hardly anything. That was like taking a pinch from the whole pile. And of course, went back the next day, and it was all gone and everything. And actually had a witness to that, but I don't want to ever bring him up, because, well, there are some people that don't need to know things in this world, unfortunately. But back to the white being. Oh yeah, which white being? So basically, these creatures on the riverbank, they cut their hair off, and it changes color during the seasons. This other being, the white being I call him, and now I'm beginning to believe he's probably like Pan, if anybody knows who Pan is, and I'm sure they all do, but I believe he's real. And I only say that because I've seen him 3 times, and I've been dealing with him for all these years. Nobody seems to be like wanting to hurt me or anything like that. I think they just get a kick out of me because I go out there and I'm so respectful of nature. I don't walk on plants, and I keep the paths small. I don't destroy anything I find. And I think, I love to walk around on trees, down trees, and anything suspended. And I just have a blast out there with me and this other guy I'll bring out, and I use him as backup. And I've told him like what's been going on, and I really haven't shown him a lot of stuff except evidence on the ground and everything. But I'm waiting for him to get more free and think open more, because I don't want to scare him, because I believe that I have a gift, and this gift was that things like this won't scare me. And they don't scare me. But I know how other people, or feel that other people in this world might not want to know what I know or have seen and all that, or be a part of it. But anyway, back to what we're saying. That's what's happening. And I've asked them to start showing me more stuff. One of which has been, I've always noticed out there, and that's why I said there's little people, because I've always noticed I would find these little tiny footprints of human type footprints, and I'd always say, well, it's not real or something, and they would just appear along riverbanks and stuff, and I never could really figure it out. But like I said, I started researching this, and I've just come up with that these are the Native American little people that they're talking about. And they're known by lots of different names and lots of different tribes. They have their own beliefs in them, how they react to them and all that kind of stuff. But I find that it's really fun. And I know they have technology, because I've proved it many times in my videos. We've seen that. But I don't know if the white being, the big guy, has technology, although to get to my house he must have had to step out of a UFO or a dimension and land on my front lawn, well, back lawn, and land on 2 feet, and then stuck his foot down and either jumped up back into his ship dimension or whatever after doing his duty, leaving me the big pile. And there were the 3 prints, but he did not get here by coming out of the water, and because I live on the water, and then walking up my backyard and then creating 3 prints in the ground that were just really, really deep and huge, and the pile was massive too, in my yard. And I've seen this before out in the forest, where I'll find even 1 print, and that I never get. And in one video you actually hear somebody coming out of a door out in the middle of the forest, or closing the door, opening and closing the door, like a big heavy metal door out in the middle of the forest. So this all comes down to where it mixes in with the UFOs, because the UFOs are obviously out there. So these beings all know the UFOs. Now the big white being might be a UFO being, which I call Pan, but he might be a UFO being. I've always found that the little people seem to be afraid of somebody else further up the hill. And the only guy that I know who lives further up the hill is the white being, the big guy. But I don't know what's actually going on there. It's like the little people give pilgrimages to this the other beings up on the top of the hill, and they're separated. So I don't know if they're like hunting them, or what's going on with them. And that's where all the UFO sightings are and all that, over this mountain. And up there is the ancient ruins, and that's what this big white being seems to be not guarding, but seems to just hang around all the time, and I find his prints up there. So I'm kind of losing my concentration here. But anyway, that's my story, and that's what I've been doing, and I'll show you more, and take care.